Welcome to Candid Talks. Today I've taken you to Aloet Lake, what I believe is a man-made lake, and synchronistically enough, I was originally recording on a dock, and when I arrived, it was pretty silent. There weren't anyone there, and after I set up all my stuff to get recording, many people started to arrive, including their boats and such, so I ended up moving to this serene location that I'm at now with this amazing tree stump in front of me. If you notice in the top left, there's actually 2 or 3 different trees that are growing out of that tree stump. And why I say this was synchronistic was that as I was starting the other recording, I had mentioned that we were viewing an area that I had previously walked on. It was 300 meters or so out into the lake from where the shoreline was. And a few years ago, during the month of October, I was able to walk that far out because the water had receded for unknown reasons. And I had noticed there was an entire forest floor of, we'll say, clear-cut trees. And I could see all of the branches because the water, when the water came in and covered up the original forest floor, it essentially also washed away all of the soil and dirt. So you can get a really good idea of the interconnectedness of a forest through all of these different root systems that were intermingling with one another. It also showed me at that time that a tree isn't simply just a single tree. When you see it standing in front of you, often in a forest, if there's other trees around it of the same tree type that are lower especially, I find that it's possible that those are the same tree that has shot another root up. And yeah, so seeing this tree stump right here, right now, shows me that, nature's beautiful. It also kind of, as I was driving around, and I've often seen like logs and occasionally a log and other tree things that seem to be detached, and they seem apparently continuing to grow. And this one, I looked at the actual evergreen tree branch that's sticking out of that stump, and it looks like it's part of that tree. And it really does lend us to the idea that we don't necessarily know everything about nature. And even I've had these ideas of telephone posts one day, which are just logs, essentially, growing branches and trees again, like growing branches and leaves and such, because we don't necessarily know the limitations of what nature can or cannot do. Anyways, so today I wanted to talk to you about creativity. Now, I believe that creativity is very important. It's probably one of the most important aspects of a human, since I believe that we were put here to create, that a human's, we'll say, goal in life is to create. There's the mathematical principle of 1 + 1 = 3, which you can kind of look at one adult male, one adult female create a child. So therefore you have 3, and that's an act of creation. But the act of creation that I'm really speaking on right now is creating in the form of arts, painting and photography and dancing, and however you choose to create, finger painting or drawing or the point is, see, the funny thing is I was creating this video before, and I was trying to give a list of different ways of creating. And when I do that, I seem to fall back into thinking rather than just letting it flow. And so I ended up having to stop that recording and restart again. So whatever form of creation that you imagine creating in, I think that energy, the energy that we exist in when we create, is very powerful. And last year, when I was creating my original videos, the Illuminating Language series and the I Am Love and Lust series, I spent an awful lot of time, and I mean like many, many hours, like maybe 100 hours creating all of those images for those videos. And I spent all that time just being immersed in this amazing energy. You see, when I created those images, I worked with an AI and I instructed the AI for colors, for what I wanted to see, the visuals. It was like I was working with a giant team. And because of the nature of an AI, I was able to visualize or see what I was imagining very quickly. And I would change colors. I would change aspects of the images. It was just an amazing experience to be within that energy of creating, not just the images themselves, but all of the scripts. See, the energy, the power that was created around me creating when I was creating was a field that my energy field was in. And it was a very, very powerful, dynamic experience. And so when we're creating, doing what perhaps we are meant to be doing, we are in an energy field that is divine, that is serene, that is powerful. When we create, we not only contribute to the world around us, we add energy of our creation to ourselves. And when we share it, we expand that creative field, that intensity. And so I highly recommend that if you have opportunities, to spend those opportunities creating something. It doesn't matter what it is. As long as you enjoy doing it. For instance, my son and I, we are creating these window art where we take paint and we essentially color a picture with paint. And then when the paint dries, it turns into a translucent figurine, a translucent image that we can then take and put on the window. And when the light shines through it, of course, there's a color change of the light coming through the window, and it's very beautiful. And once again, it doesn't have to be something that is a painting that is going to be sold for money. It can simply just be creation for the sake of creation. Even if after you create it and then recycle it, or I don't know, do whatever you want to do with it. The point is, it's just the act of creating definitely is in alignment with who we are, I feel, as a species. Even creating a sandcastle, which will eventually, on a beach, which will eventually be eroded by the water, is still a form of creation. Often when children go to the beach or to anywhere where there's sand, they love building things with sand. And although it's very, not temperamental, although it eventually goes away, they still create it. Or another one is the Buddhists, or maybe not Buddhists, but some sort of monks. They like to create these very powerful, very beautiful murals with sand and such. And then the moment that they're finished creating it, they destroy it. They blow it away. Destroying it maybe is not the word. However, it does show that the greatest art is temporary. A few years ago, I was actually got in the idea of painting on my walls, and I created this one beautiful image on my wall, and I really, really enjoy it. However, I painted it on my wall, meaning that it's not something I can ever take with me. It'll be painted over. It'll be sanded off. However, I've realized that doesn't matter. The act of creation, the act of creating, is the reason why I created it. Creating doesn't have to be, and I'm using a lot of the word nots, but creating doesn't have to be for the purpose of making money or taking it with you. It doesn't have to be permanent. That's what I was trying to think with the Buddhist part. It doesn't have to be permanent. Creating something can be temporary creations. See, when we're younger as children, we're often very, very creative, and schools do a really good job of getting us to focus on our creative aspects and art projects and stories that we tell and such. However, as adults, we often tend to lose it because our time is consumed with how to make money, how to survive, how to provide, and we lose that aspect of creation. So I highly recommend, as I said many times, whatever you feel like creating, glue some sticks together. Anything. Lego is an amazing mode of creation. However, with the new evolution of Lego, I think that they've taken out the creative aspect to it. And what I mean by that is it's not like they're more building tools as opposed to creative. They're telling you what to build, how to build it. You follow the plans. Like when I was a child, when we had Lego, yeah, there was a way that we were supposed to build it. However, we built it however we wanted to. We just took all the pieces you could buy. Well, you could buy packages of Lego that were just all blocks. And then it was an awesome creative opportunity. All my words are getting all mixed up. It was a creative ability to just take it and make it how you wanted to. So even with the Lego pieces nowadays, perhaps if you don't want to take a set apart, you can take that set after you've taken it all apart and build something with it, with those pieces. It doesn't have to be from the plans. It's just, yeah, creative aspects are amazing. Now, where I envision this going, and this is maybe the overall important part. See, Bashar talks about whenever you have a choice to do something, and Bashar is there's a man named Daryl, and he channels a being called Bashar, and Bashar has amazing amounts of insight into a lot of different aspects and questions that we as people have. And he often talks about when there is a choice between two things, do that which makes you the most happiest, the most joyful. Like choose the choice that makes your heart sing the most. Now, we're not always going to have, as I said, options to have an easel and paint and sit by the lake and do some painting. Maybe it's simply taking popsicle sticks and creating something with glue. However, when we take that opportunity to create over doing something that doesn't create, then we empower our soul. We strengthen our being. It's even healing. One of the things that I mentioned about in my healing centers is to have a creative aspect to that, to have a place where adults can go back and they can make finger puppets or make something out of yarn or whatever it is, like to have a creative area, a creative corner in that healing center, because the act of creating is so therapeutic. Singing, very therapeutic, especially if it's a very high vibrational song or something that makes you feel good, that doesn't bring back memories of a lost love, but brings you up with the ideas of emotions that empower you. So now, where this is important is I truly believe, based on where I see society going, that we will have systems, and I'll use that word lightly, but we'll have methods of helping support people who want to live a life of creativity. Like imagine this, of having a system where all the people who choose to live and choose to produce creative works, regardless of what they are, and that the community supports them for their endeavors. Now, as I mentioned before with my healing center idea, I'm not really too interested in the how, but I am interested in the why. And the why I spoke to you about before is that it's very empowering to oneself as well as to the people around them, their communities. But imagine living in a community where all the painters and the artists and the sculptors and the dancers and the singers and the banjo players, imagine that they all lived in a world where their creative aspects were supported by the community. They were supported by the way of life. Perhaps in one of the exploratoriums, people can actually receive compensation that will allow them to live a life of being that artist. So no longer would we have starving artists, but we could have people that if they wanted to simply paint all day and never even sell a painting, but just paint all day, that as long as they were contributing and being creative, that the community would support them. And how that happens, like I said, that's not of major concern. That's something that we or you or whoever that's listening to this can work out. You could have it so that a painter or an artist or a creator would essentially be required perhaps to show what they were creating, regardless if it was appreciated or not. Appreciated means like monetized. That if a person was creating poetry and was able to stand up and relate or perform, if they were able to perform a poem or show a painting or show what they have been doing, that these people would be funded by the community. So as I said, it could be exploratoriums, it could be funding from somewhere else. However, I do believe one day that God will provide for those people who simply just want to create. And that's why I say the how doesn't matter. Perhaps we figure out a way of how to, in the meantime, fund these projects. But I believe that God, source of all things, will eventually support his creators and bring back their ability to live a life of creation. Perhaps someone just wants to build houses in random locations and then just give them away. That person who loves the art of carpentry and design and living in different places and then simply just giving his houses away. See, we lived in a world where it was consumed by the concept of everything has money revolving around it. And most people, although they're amazing painters or singers or dancers or whatever other types of creative arts they have, they are told when they're younger, oh, well, you can't make money off of that. That won't give you a career. So we step away from it. That's part of the programming that breaks us away from our creativity, is that our parents tell us and our society and teachers tell us, well, that doesn't make money unless you are the most amazing at it, that it doesn't make money. However, life doesn't have to revolve around money. Life in the future isn't going to revolve around money. There are other societies that figured out ways to avoid having to live around focusing on money. Many of the great painters of the past had what they called, I believe, patrons, or they had people that would fund them their living expenses and their life in exchange for the art that they produced. And I guess that perhaps even happens in today, just not as much. However, it's more for those people that believe that it's an investment. So I'm not saying that that patrons are definitely the way to go, but we could look at as that communities become patrons of their community, of their creators. And perhaps it's not a matter of a person living their life just creating. Perhaps that person who wants to be a creator exchanges their time for volunteering and helping out the community, and then the community supports them in providing for their living costs and their food and supplies and whatever else is that they need to live. So this is a new world that we're stepping into. This is an interesting time when we can re-know and reconceive of the systems and that we were once limited by, and we can break through those limitations and those glass ceilings and see things differently. Because when we return to being more of who we were meant to be, the creators that we were meant to be, perhaps we will embody the truer selves, the higher selves that we have always been. Well, I hope you enjoyed this talk. This was a really weird talk to get out for some reason. Many obstacles. But like I said, everything happens for a reason. And I'm sure there's something in what I just spoke of. Perhaps maybe just the energy of being here with me right now that may be beneficial to you. So get out there and create. And in the comments, let me know what your greatest creation was, or let me know what you're currently creating. Like, if we share more of what's going on with each other, rather than often I see in the comments that when there's a post of something that is negative, everyone comes out to say something. Everyone has something to say about when it's negative. But however, when it's positive, there's crickets most of the time. And so I definitely encourage people, go into the comments when, after you watch a video, even the act of reflecting on what you received or your insights or cognitions from the video, and then you posted your comment, that comment itself is a creation. It's a creation of your thoughts, and it's sharing your creation because you're putting it out there for the world to see. So in this video, let me know what you are creating, what you have created, your experiences with creation, whatever it is, your beliefs on creation, whatever you want to talk about, share it in the comments, and let's get this world creating so that we can heal quicker. Because as I mentioned before, being in the act of creation, and this is actually we'll call it a pro tip. Being in the act of creation has healing aspects. So if you're a person who's looking to heal from whatever it is that you're wanting to heal from, whatever you think you have as a illness or a disability or whatever it is, when we create, when we paint, when we sing, when we dance, when we do whatever it is that makes us happy, there's an energy that we create that in turn heals us, and it heals those around us. And you could create something candidly that perhaps will inspire someone else as well, and then they'll have a healing effect. And then it all ripples out, just like these waves of this water that I'm sitting beside. All the ripples continuously go on forever. We may not see where they end. However, our creations stay. They remain. They're permanently present. They're probably permanently present from the time that we thought, but when we actually express and we bring that energy into our field and into the world around us, they ripple out forever. I've often believed that the videos that I created previously, that even though they weren't very well, they didn't have too many views when I created them last year, I imagined that people off-world were watching them. And so therefore my creations were moving further than I could even imagine or see. So thank you very much for joining me beside this wet riverside or lakeside. Yeah, lakeside with this beautiful trunk. Yeah. There's a lot of things that I could say by. Anyways, sorry for insulting you, tree trunk. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy the rain should it come your way. And if there's sun around you, embrace that too, because we're about to create a magnificent world. So thank you very much. And I encourage you to get out there and create.